Hello, welcome back to Nobody Asked Though. I am Nancy, no friends, although I think I actually have a few friends now. I've got a few subscribers, which is pretty cool. So thank you very much if you have subscribed. I really appreciate it. If you have liked, commented, I really appreciate it. If you're just watching, I also appreciate that too. So thank you very much for being here. If you're coming back, welcome back. If it's your first time, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm going to jump right in tonight because I say that every night and then I continually just rant about whatever for like several minutes. I do have some notes from the last video, so I'm going to go through those now. I haven't watched the 2 videos previous. I've only... Anytime I say that, something previous, I always think of Sarah Boone from her interview when she's like, I remember everything at once, and I know I have a million things to do, and then I know what I have to do next, and I know the things that I have to do previous. Whatever she says. Sorry. This is going to happen a lot because of my brain and the way it works and all of the rubbish and nonsense and useless clips and quotes that are stored inside there that are taking up all the room that I need for other important things. Okay. So the notes that I have for part 9, which is the last one I recorded. So yeah, I haven't listened to the 2 prior to that, but I will. And then if I have any notes on those, we'll just have to do those later. But I have a couple of notes for part 9. So I mentioned, he mentioned, yes, that I have a wife, right? And that was bothering me. And I said, that's bothering me, right? And I figured out why now. My cat's digging in his water bowl. I don't know why he does that. He does that and he's making a huge mess, but that's fine. He's enjoying himself and I'll clean that up later. But that's what that noise is, if you can hear it. So I figured out why it was bothering me. So along with all the other things we went through and analysed and extracted, which are all correct and accurate and still valid, it was bothering me because she's quoting him, right? So she's stepping into his shoes and becoming him in order to say these things because she can't say them as her, right? So it's like she's role-playing him, okay, in order to say these things. Like it's a play she's written, like it's lines she's written, you know, in a play, and she's acting as him. And he mentioned, where was it? And then mentioned, so he didn't mention, right? Nobody mentioned it. It was just mentioned by zombies, remember? And then mentioned, yes, that I have a wife. Okay, so you can't quote someone mentioning something, right? If you're saying someone mentioned something, you say, and they mentioned that blah, blah, blah. You don't say, and they mentioned, and then quote them, because quoting someone is quoting what they've said. Does that make sense? So you can't, when someone mentions something, you don't quote them, right? But if they've said something or they told you something, then you quote them. Generally, if they've said. So rather than, and then mentioned, yes, that I have a wife, it would be, and then said, yes, that I have a wife. But then that wouldn't be part of the quote as well, right? So it would be, and said, and you would say who said it, okay, but she didn't, so we're not going to insert that here. And said, yes, is the quote, right? Yes. Unquote, that, quote, I have a wife. So that's why it was bothering me, because it doesn't make sense the way she said it, and we know why it doesn't make sense, but I just wanted to explain that, okay? So also it's the wrong way around. So it would be, and said that, yes, I have a wife. That's not right though, because you wouldn't say and said that. You mentioned that. You don't said that, right? And he said, yes, I have a wife. That's how it should be structured, right? The pronoun of who's saying it, the person who's saying it is present, because you're quoting them and you're saying with certainty and confidence and conviction that they've said this thing. That's why you're quoting them, because of the conviction. You're able to quote them because they said it. And he said, quote, yes, I have a wife, unquote, right? So that's why it's bothering me so much, because it's all jumbled up. Part of it's quoted, part of it shouldn't be quoted. You can't quote something that's mentioned. You can only quote something that's said. All right. So I just wanted to go over that, because I've said this before, and a lot of times when I'm reading through something in real time, there's something bothering me, but I don't always know right away what it is. And I have to sit with it and I have to think on it and I have to come back to it. And so that just, when I was listening back to the video, when I was listening to myself explaining it and reading it over and over, it came to me. That's why it was bothering me, right? And this is all of these things that have been switched around here and don't fit and don't work, and they're wrong, and they're not grammatically correct, they're not contextually correct, or they're not expected, right? That's all sensitivities. That's why that's like that, because this is so sensitive to her. And it can be sensitive for different reasons, but one of those reasons is because it's fabricated, it's a lie, it's deception. And I believe here that that's why, okay? Because of the other language indicates deception, not just sensitivity like stress or shame or trauma or anything like that, okay? I think that's the only note I have for there. But I've still got notes from that other video I was listening to that wasn't me, that just said that what we're going to go over tonight now. And I won't be able to record now for a couple of nights. So I really wanted to get this one done, because sometimes when I leave it for a few days, I lose the traction. You know, I lose, because I'm immersed in this right now. I'm in the language. I'm in the context. You know, I'm feeling it. I'm in Nikki's shoes. I'm understanding everything, right? I'm sort of immersed in it. Okay. If you then take too long of a break, that all goes away. And when you come back to it, it's like starting over. And because this part sort of runs on, and it's also the part where this other analyst, I guess, I don't know, let's say analyst, this other analyst said that this is truthful. There's a truthful statement coming up. And I just do not agree, okay? And I wanted to get this out of the way, get this over with, get this done and move forward. And I really want to start getting through as much of this as quickly as possible so we can get... it's funny because as NK would say, get into the meat of it, which is so odd and strange and weird in the context of all of this. But that's what she would say. All right, so we got up to when she starts her next rant, her next block, and it is like a block. It's like a big, heavy, thick, dense block of garbage, right? So quickly go over leading into this, what we went over last night. I don't think there's much more to get out of here. There probably is. We could go over this a little more because towards the end of the videos, obviously it's quite late. It's 2 hours in and I do start to get a little tired, and it is quite draining, especially this interview, not just this one, but any interview with her is draining. She's unpleasant to listen to, and that's even without the vocal fry, right? So she goes through this big long rant where she works. She's not asked that. She's asked, what is she asked? how you guys, oh yeah, walk me through a little bit of the early part of how he courted you or you courted him. I don't really know which one happened. How you guys got to know each other. She starts telling us all about her job, gas monitor sensors. All these people came into her office and one of them happened to be him. And then he started talking about he told her he had kids. He started talking about his kids and then mentioned, yes, that I have a wife, and her brain breaks. Kevin then says, when do you think that was? Which opens up, obviously, we went through this last time. It's a bad question. She's given an opportunity and she takes it. And why wouldn't she? I mean, we've got to cut her some slack for that, right? I mean, he handed it to her. She just took it. When he said all that, which she never actually said that he said, okay, and he never actually said. Specifically, when he told you he was getting separated from his wife, was that within the first couple of weeks that you knew him, or was that later on when you said you met him around May or June? Yeah, it was still in June. The still there is now bothering me. Yeah, not yes. Yeah is less committed, is less committed than yes, but it is still an answer in the affirmative, but it's not as confident, as certain as yes. Okay, it was still in June. It was still in June. Still. It was still in June. That is another reference to time, because the context is still as in within, like a time frame. Okay. It was still in June. I'm going to move on from that one, but that one is bothering me. I think there's something in there that we haven't extracted yet, because still it was in June. Yes, it was June. Yes, it was June. Yes, it was still in June. She could have said, yeah, that's bothering me. I'm gonna come back to that one. We'll come back to that one at a later time. All right, I'm just gonna make a little asterisk note. It would have been before Father's Day, so it didn't happen, right? Because it's hypothetical. It would have been before Father's Day had it happened. Kevin, so did you guys ever go out on any kind of Nikki interrupting? No, he hasn't said what yet. Kevin, date of any kind, just Nikki. No. 5 no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if you include the previous no. So all these no's, overkill with the no's, but they did go out on dates. She's about to tell us that they went out. So I don't know what all these no's are for, but it's interesting that she says no when she herself is about to tell us that they very much went on any kind of date. So like that day. Did they go on a date that day? Oh, no. We didn't go on a date that day. The first day that I met him. No. We didn't go on a date that day. The first time he came into my office and we spoke ever. No. Of course not. We didn't go on a date. Is that what she's saying? Because obviously, but how else can she say no with such conviction when they literally went on a date multiple times that she herself tells us later? So, okay, that's interesting. It's like that's helping to push her narrative. That's helping to push it. She's reframing it. So she's answering the question she wants to answer, because he hasn't specified. I mean, he kind of does with ever. Did you guys ever go out on any kind of date of any kind? No. But you actually literally did. So in her mind, she's just deciding what that question meant. And that question meant maybe that day, maybe that week. I don't know. I don't know what she's framed it in her mind as, but she's answering a question in her mind. And the answer to that question is no. So, okay, moving right along. And then Kevin says, we're finishing his interrupted sentence. We're conversing at work. Nikki, okay. Now this is where she goes into another block. So she says an answer here, and then Kevin asks another question, then she goes into another short block. So we'll read the whole thing through and then we'll break it down. All right. We're conversing at work. Nikki. Yeah, that's all it was. And then, I don't know, we just started hanging out. We hung out. We went to a park, hung out at a park. Okay, but you just said no. No. You just machine gunned no at us. And now, yeah, we went to a park. Okay. Kevin says, so let's go back real quick. So why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Did he ask you out at that time? Kevin with the compound questions. Nichol says, no, he didn't. I think he was probably interested in me. And so he talked to me a couple times via his work phone. And I was like, no, like it was still very friendly conversation. But then when I realized like this man is interested in me and I am interested in him, this is personal. So we got away from the Anadarko thing because I really don't want those guys affiliated with any of this. And she trails off. Let me just check what comes next because we'll finish that off. Of course, Kevin interrupts again with another question, which could have been asked later. After she's given her statement, he could have come back and asked this later. So you have a work phone. Okay, so we go into that. There's a lot of question and answer back and forth in that part. So hopefully we can get through that in one video, but we'll see. I don't know if we'll get to that in this one. There's a lot in here. Okay. So Kevin says we're conversing at work. Now he should have said started talking at work because that's her language. And if you are going to, you shouldn't interrupt. You shouldn't interrupt ever. Never, ever interrupt. Okay. But if you're going to ask a question at an appropriate time, not while they're talking, don't interrupt. Use her language, use their language, all right? Because then you're not contaminating their language. You're not introducing any language, okay? So if you are going to ask something, you use the subject's language, which in this case is NK, right? We're conversing at work. You just were conversing at work. Nikki, yeah, that's all it was, okay? So he should have used her language, but he shouldn't have asked that question anyway, because now she's answering that question and not just telling him what happened. But anyway, let's see what she says. So we have yeah here again. So we've had 2 years, right? So that's repeated instead of yes. And she has said yes previously, okay? So it's not as if she doesn't say yes and use the answer yes. She said yes multiple times back here, okay? Yes, yes, and yes, 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 yes. So there's lots of yeses here. We will note, and I'm just going to write this down because I don't know if it's in my other notes yet, because I think I've just noticed this as we're going through it. See, real-time analysis, exclusive. You're here for the exclusive. Yeah, versus yes. Now, previously in the interview, when she's used the word yes, most of the time, it's been just yes on its own, okay? Yes has been on its own. When she says yeah, it's not on its own. Yeah needs support, okay? Which is interesting. So we're just going to make a note of that, and we're going to see if that continues all the way throughout, okay? And if it changes, if it's always the same and then somewhere it's different, then that's worth looking into, okay? Because when I just went back and checked that she had said yes before multiple times, there was out of 4 or 5, between 3 and 5, I can't remember right now, of times of saying yes as an answer, yes was a full and complete answer. One of those times, she repeated it and said yes twice, and then she followed on with some kind of a support, backup, explanation, all right? So generally when she says yes, it's on its own. It doesn't need help. Generally when she says yeah, or these 2 instances here where she said yeah, it's needed support. Okay, that matters, right? So yeah is not as confident for her. Yes is confident. Yes is with conviction. Yes is certain, right? Yeah is not. Yeah needs extra help. Okay. So yeah, it was still in June. And then here, yeah, that's all it was. You were just conversing at work. Sorry, you just were conversing at work. That's all it was. That's what he said. Nothing more than conversing at work. She says, yeah, that's all it was. He's just said that. She's reiterated it. This is persuasion because, again, this supports this supports that there was more to it, that there was an intention there, okay? And possibly at this stage, because we don't know where, so they started talking at work, right? So from the day in the office, that's the first day they met, and from that day, they started talking, okay? It's not as if they had said hello or met at work before that day, and then from that day they started talking. That's the day she met him, right? That's the day she met him. Yeah, because she'd seen him before, but she didn't ever talk to him. That's the day she met him. That from that point onwards, they started talking. So it wasn't as if they met and then they didn't talk and then they ran into each other again, or he came into her office again, and then, then it was immediately. Okay, this is what she's telling us. They immediately started talking from the day they met. From the first meeting, they started talking. All right, every time she saw him in the hallway, every time. Okay, it's weird. That is weird, man. And then she says here, that's all it was. Yeah, that's all it was. He's just said, so this is all it was. And she said, not yes. She hasn't said that. She said, yeah, that's all it was. So that's not all it was, okay? There was more to it. She's needing to persuade us here. She's repeating it. She's desperate. She's desperate for us to believe this. And why? What is the difference? You ended up seeing him anyway because she knows, she's aware of how it looks. She's aware that it's fast. She's aware that it's full on. Okay, this is full on. 6 weeks. No, she was Googling wedding dresses. They were going to, he was going to leave his wife for her. 6 weeks. 6 weeks from first meeting, allegedly. Oh, better say it just in case in this video, in every video, everything that I say, every statement that is made, every opinion in this video is just purely and strictly my opinion, okay? My analysis is all my opinion. Everything is my opinion. Anyone who is judicially, not judicially guilty is judicially innocent, okay? Now, with that said, okay, so that's all it was. So, look, it wasn't, all right? There was more to it, probably flirting. The video that I watched did mention that as well, so I think they got that right. They said that was in the language, which I do agree that it is. I don't agree that it is, all right? So more than likely some flirting here, and definitely intentions, all right? And she's speaking, so it's her intentions. She can't speak of his intentions. He has to speak of his intentions, all right? So we can't assume from her language that he had intentions, okay? We're purely analysing her language. And in her language, there definitely is intentions. So I'm not saying that there weren't intentions from his side and that he didn't have intentions and it was just her. What I'm saying is I am just analysing her language and it's in her language, right? If it's in his language when I analyse that, then we can say that then, okay? And then, so another jump over in time, missing information. So I'm assuming the and then was the progression of where it became more than just talking, right? And then, right, so she loses confidence here. Stalling, I don't know. Losing confidence, stalling. She's about to tell us something and she's saying, I don't know. She doesn't want to tell us what happened in here, all right? And then, I don't know. So the and then, the part she's jumping over is the I don't know. It's the part she doesn't want to tell us, all right? She doesn't want to tell us what happened in there. Doesn't look good for her. Doesn't help her narrative. Doesn't help her story. Doesn't help these themes that she's trying to push, right? The influence she wants to have over what we think. This isn't going to help that. It's not going to work in her favor. All right, so she's going to leave this part out, which we can tell what it was because of the other language around it. So it's clearly the flirting and the expression of interest, I would say, okay? Obviously, there could be other possibilities in there. I'm not saying I definitely know what it is. What I'm saying is the language indicates that we would allow for the possibility that it was flirting and an expression of interest. All right, that's how I would word that because it's present in the language. The language indicates that. But of course, we weren't there. So we don't know what happened. And it could have been anything. She could have kissed him that first day, you know? We don't know what happened. She could have literally thrown herself at him in the office. We have no idea, okay? And then, I don't know, we just started hanging out. So now they're a we immediately, right? He said, his wife, his kids, blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know, we. So we is togetherness and unity. So there are we here where she's looking back. We just started hanging out. Just, again, minimizes, reduces. It can't exist without an alternate thought or event, right? So it can't exist without something else, without there being more to it, to reduce, to refute, to minimize, okay? We just started hanging out. We hung out. We went to a park, hung out at a park. She's repeating, okay? Her brain's breaking again here. So I'd like to know what happened at that park. Just saying. Her brain's breaking here, so something must have happened at the park. All right, so I've got a note there, but hasn't come up yet. So now, Where does my analysis begin? I don't know if I went through that part there. We went through still in June. It would have been before Father's Day. Yep, so no. Did you guys ever kind of go out on any kind of... She answers no before it's been asked, so she doesn't know what he was going to ask her, but she answers no. She anticipated a question here. So how did she anticipate the question? Is it because they did go on a date? Which, I mean, it very well could be that, because we know that they did. She's literally told us immediately following that. We can't assume, but she answers a question here that has not yet been asked, which means whatever she just answered no to was definitely a yes, because she had to have something in her mind to answer no to before the question was finished. Then she says no again once the question is finished. So you can't answer a question you haven't heard yet, right? Unless you think you know what it is. So you can't answer a question that you don't, if you don't know what the question is yet. If someone says, did you? And you go, no. Something's obviously happened that you're aware of. And that's what you assume they're going to ask you. And you say no, because you've assumed that's what they're going to ask you. You shouldn't assume things, because that's how miscommunication happens. But that would be the only reason you could answer a question before it's finished, right? So she had a thought in her mind. She had a question in her mind, and that's what she's answered no to. But he was asking if she'd gone out on a date. And then once he'd finished the question, she knew the question he was asking, she still said, no, 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 100 times. And she did go on a date with him. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. Maybe we can come back to that. If you've got a theory or a question or opinion, put it in the comments, all right? And we can chat about it in the comments. Maybe if we get some ideas, or find something interesting, we can talk about it in another video. So I have to allow for the fact that 4 no's may actually be a yes, because there's so many. It's not a no anymore, it's become a yes, all right? Persuasion has a need to persuade. And we know, because she immediately tells us they did go on a date. So we know that they did. So we know that those no's are actually a yes. I have no idea why she says that. I have no idea, because it's blowing my mind that she would say no so certainly and desperately to a question that she immediately contradicts with her own statement willingly. I don't know. Okay. All right, so yeah, that's all it was, right, about just conversing at work. And he used the word conversing. I do want to give him extra points. I do want to give him a high 5 and a 10 out of 10 here for using the word conversing instead of conversating. Thank you so much, Kevin, from the bottom of my heart. Really, thank you. I appreciate you. So here the detective qualifies or minimizes with just, right? Because there's another thought, there's a possibility that there was more, right? Or there's it's sort of hanging in the air, or an accusation possibly that there's more than that, right? Or he's asking her with his question to refute that there was more, right? By saying it was just conversing at work, right? There was nothing more, right? That's what that question means. When you say just, that's what it sort of means, right? That's what that question means there. So there was nothing more, right? Just conversing at work. Yeah, that's all it was. Okay. So she doesn't have to say that, because he's already said it, but she needs to. Why does she need to? Because she's desperate to convince us. And persuasion has a need to persuade, and she needs to persuade us to believe a certain thing. Okay? Why does she need us to believe that certain thing? Maybe because that's not true, or that certain thing helps her narrative. So it's important that we believe this certain thing, even if it's not true, right? She has to keep convincing us she can't help herself just to make sure that we believe her. Yeah, that's all it was. If they were just conversing at work, she wouldn't need to say that again. She could just say yes. And she said it before, but she can't say that here. Why can't she say that here? Because it's not true. And then missing information, jump over in time, playing with the timeline again. Is a filler word. Stalling, losing confidence, giving herself time to, she's scrambling of what to say in her mind, because it's not just a true account, it's not just flowing, but she doesn't know what to say. So I don't know is another stalling tactic. It's filling, it's filler words, it's giving herself more time, it's losing confidence again. And then I don't know, she's nervous and stressed and confused. She's losing confidence in what she doesn't know what she's going to say. She's scrambling. She can't keep the timeline straight because she's trying to keep track of it in her head and it's not in order, right? So she's confusing herself. She's trying not to tell us the right timeline. She's aware of the timeline in her mind, and she's trying not to say that. She's trying not to give that away, right? So she's got to remember what it is to avoid it, okay? So she's thinking about it the whole time, but she can't say it, right? So this is where it's stressful and it's difficult and it's draining, okay? We just started hanging out. So they just started talking, right? Now, how did they just start talking? There was an incident with equipment issues, some kinda like pretty serious equipment issues, and heaps of people coming into her office one day, and he just happened to be one of them, okay? And we just started talking, right? And what exactly did she say? So she's got, I guess we just started talking here. That's at the end. Oh no, that's at the start. We just started talking. Sorry, I just want to make sure that she's said the exact same thing now 3 times. And I can't, and I have to check it's the exact same thing, because we don't make assumptions in language analysis. Pretty casual. I thought she said they just started talking. I think I met him sometime. It was just talking at work. So I think I met him sometime, blah, blah, blah. It was just talking. It was it back there too, not we just started talking. There was no we. It was it was just talking. So she's massively distancing there at the start. And then... And then it became, I guess we just started talking. So then it was a we, and it was, I guess. It was qualified. It lacked confidence. She doesn't want to tell us how they started talking, right? But they just started talking. And now here again, we just started hanging out. So they just started everything, right? They just started everything. So that's interesting. So they just started hanging out. And then how did they come to hanging out? They had to plan it, right? They had to decide they were going to hang out, and they had to make plans to hang out and make a time and arrange it and decide on it and then go and arrive, right? So this and then jumps over a lot. That's all it was. It was just talking at work. And then, I don't know, we just started hanging out. So it went from that's all it was, just conversing at work, to then we just started hanging out. Okay. That's not odd. You haven't left out like every single thing that led up to that. How on earth did it become hanging out from just conversing at work when he's married? But yeah, that's all it was. So that is distancing. Yeah, so that's distancing. That's all. That's all it was. So that's everything. Nothing more than that. That's all it was. That's all it was. That phrase, that's all it was, is another phrase that tends to be used when there's some kind of another thought, like an alternative. That's all. It implies that there could be more. That's all. It was. So there's no we here again. It's it. She's distancing from it. That's distancing. It is distancing. Yeah, needs help. So obviously there was more. Immediate. Like I said, look, this language is supporting it again. I said earlier, I think something happened that day in the office. I think she obviously was very clear about her interest and her attraction. Maybe she sent an email. Maybe she said it directly to his face. I don't know. I think she made it extremely obvious. She thought, now's my chance. She's made it clear that she's interested in him from the get-go, from the very beginning, from the first day they met, right? And this language is so minimizing and convincing and distancing that it just supports that there was more to it than just talking at work. There was intentions there. There was interest there. So that it just keeps coming up, right? So I said we'd just say it's my personal opinion for now at the time, unless it kept coming up and we'd point it out. Well, I'm pointing it out again here, all right? This is more language that supports. It's not all there was, okay? And then, all right, so let's get back to the analysis here. So, and then missing, complete jump over in time to now they're hanging out, and it's we. Not it just started hanging out. It didn't start hanging out. We started hanging out. So they're a we now. So this and then is the entire period of them becoming just talking at work to a we hanging out, right? You don't just start hanging out with a girl from work when you're married, when you've got kids. So, okay, let's continue. So just, again, is minimizing. There's another thought there. So the intentions are still there, okay? Because it's just, again, it's still just, right? Now we just started hanging out. So I think things got physical very quickly. Things might have even got physical at work. But if not at work, things got physical, I think, immediately when they met outside of work. And I think this is my personal opinion, but it may come out in the language. And it is my opinion is my opinion is influenced by the language, right? So my opinion isn't just plucked out of thin air. My opinion is from what I see in the language, but maybe it hasn't been confirmed, so to speak, in the language. So it can't be part of my analysis, part of the indicators and what we're extracting from the language. But from the things that we are extracting and the indicators, I've formed an opinion about this, okay? It's kind of like circumstantial evidence, right? It's still evidence, but it's circumstantial, right? If you're on Watts Island, if you like true crime, you know what I'm talking about with that. Because people have been convicted on circumstantial evidence, right? It's still evidence, but it's circumstantial. So let's just say my opinion is circumstantial evidence. That is my personal opinion. I think that I reckon something happened at this park this day. I think the first time they met outside of work, they got physical immediately, if not already before, immediately, okay? And let me know in the comments if you agree. And if we find it in the language, we've already put it out there, okay? If it comes up later, we've already put it out there. We've seen it already, all right? So again, we is unity and togetherness. She didn't start hanging out with him. We started hanging out. So there are we in her mind at this time that they started hanging out. Started indicates that it continued, right? It's not completed. So they began hanging out. So it was a ongoing thing. It was a continual thing. More than once. It happened more than once. It can't be referencing one time. You can't start something that you only do that one time, right? You complete it if you do it that one time. We started hanging out. So when she said no 4 times earlier, sorry, it was 5. When she said no 5 times earlier, 6 including the initial one, when the detective asked her if they'd gone on a date of any kind, this was a date. And she said no 6 times. So, okay. Unless hanging out is not going on a date of any kind. But he said ever, and they did go out on a date later at least once. So that can't even be supported in the language moving forward. So she's I don't know why she said no to that before. That's blowing my mind. But we'll remember it. If you've got any ideas, put them in the comments, okay? Because hanging out is most certainly a date of any kind, right? Did you ever go anywhere together? A date of any kind. Maybe he shouldn't, and this is another reason that you should not introduce language, because date can be subjective, right? So she can decide that hanging out at a park wasn't a date, and then she can say no. And that will be a truthful answer, because in her mind, a date is not hanging out at a park. A date is going to a restaurant. A date is him buying her dinner. People can have conditional thoughts about language, and so if it doesn't meet their criteria, then they don't agree with your definition or your usage of that language, and they can just say no. Even if it's the answer should be yes, they can say no truthfully, because you've used language that they don't agree with, right? Peter gives the example of Bill Clinton when he's asked if he had, you know what, relations with that woman. And he says, I did not have you know what relations with that woman. The way he's worded it in his mind, he's framed that as not being what he was asked. So he's able to deny it. Okay, so what did we get up to? So she's just blatantly lied. Okay. I don't agree with what I've written here now, because I don't think he told her on the date. He told her at work. But she already knew, which is correct. hanging out is minimizing because they were spending time together privately together when she knew he was married, and she obviously was interested in him. She had intentions. They were attracted to each other. So, I mean, she's wording it hanging out, okay. But we'll make note of that language, hanging out, and what it means to her to hang out, right? Spending private time alone with a man she's interested in, and he's interested in her, obviously, okay. She has said, so she's minimizing what they were doing, okay. She's called it hanging out when clearly they were, may not have been a date, but I mean, it kind of was a date. You know, they were spending time together and they shouldn't have been because of the situation. He was married and they were interested in each other, right? So she's minimizing that because they had no reason to be hanging out unless there was something more to it, because he was a married man and she was a co-worker, and it shouldn't have been a secret. If they were literally hanging out because we've all probably had male and female, like the opposite sex co-worker friends at work, right? I've had co-worker friends that were male when I've been in relationships, and it was never a problem because they were just because there's an alternate thought of there being more. We were just friends at work, and it was never an issue, and it was never a secret, okay? If it's a secret, then it's not just legitimately friends at work, okay? It's just not. And it's not just hanging out if it's a secret. So I've got here, sorry, I'm so tired today. She has said that spending time alone, as we just said, with a married man outside of work and in secret, when he has a family, a wife and children at home, that he is no doubt lying to, is hanging out. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is her definition of hanging out, okay? We're going to note that moving forward, all right? Because if she uses this term hanging out again, we'll see in what context she uses it. They were meeting in secret, beginning an affair. She categorizes this as a hanging out. Interesting, okay? Interesting. So she easily references an affair as hanging out. She easily references a secret rendezvous with a married man that she's interested in pursuing casually, as if it's nothing. No problem. There's no shame in here. There's no shame. There's minimizing, but I don't see any shame. And it's minimizing for her own benefit. It's not minimizing because of shame. That's another thing this other person said, that it was understandable that she would minimize this because of the shame. But I don't see shame in here, I'm sorry. I just see minimizing because it doesn't serve her narrative. There's no shame about what she's done. She's minimizing it because it doesn't serve her for the listener to think that she's going out on a date in secret with a man she's well aware is married and has children. She said that he's told her he's getting separated, but he's not separated. So she's literally told us that he's still married, he's not separated yet, and she's going out with him in secret. But she's the victim here. She's innocent. She's moral. She's good. She's kind. She's trying to help. She's innocent. You know, it wasn't her fault. That doesn't help that narrative, okay? That doesn't support that. That shows that, you know, she's maybe doesn't have great morals and values and isn't sort of maybe trying to be helpful and didn't care about other people and hurting other people and that sort of thing. It doesn't help her narrative, right? So that's why she's minimizing it here. And this other channel said, you know, it's understandable and it makes sense that she would minimize this because of embarrassment and her reputation, like her image. And it is her image, but it's to serve a narrative for her own personal gain. It's not because of shame about what she's done. We will note this to see where else she minimizes things like this. So any other time she minimizes this affair, meeting with a married man while he's still married, like in secret, lying to his wife, where it's clearly wrong. Okay, this is clearly wrong what she's doing. Okay, but she's minimizing it like it's not wrong. She's making it out like it's not wrong. We'll note when she does that. Okay, and she's done that here. Also, just talking at work is her minimizing something that's wrong too. Okay, because we know that she already knew he was married. All right, we know that because of the searches that came out in Discovery. And so she's been doing this from the start, minimizing something she clearly knew was wrong. She shouldn't have been pursuing this man, but she was anyway, right? And then she says, we just started talking at work. You knew who he was. You knew he was married and you chased after him anyway, okay? So this is not the first time she's done this in this statement, okay? In this interview. That's all it was with the talking. That's all it was. And then we just started hanging out. So, and that's all it was. And then it was more than that. All right, it's basically what she's saying. It was, so it was just conversing at work. Yeah, that's all it was. And then, I don't know, we just started hanging out. So that's all it was. And then it was more than that, right? Immediately following, it was more than that. So saying that's all it was is so redundant because she's immediately said, and then it was more. It was just talking at work, right? Then we started hanging out. Okay, so there's no point. So she's saying it because she needs to tell us this, and she needs to tell us it because it's important to her that we hear it. And it's important to her that we hear it because hearing those words, it's like an illusion. You know, we hear the words that mean something, so we'll think that, right? That's all it was. So we go, oh, that's all it was. Pack up, guys. See, you can go home, Nicole. That's all it was. And then we just started hanging out, right? You've just said it was just this, and now it's just something else. You're trying to minimize it, taking the next step up. You're trying to make this next step seem like not less of a big deal, like less of a next step, because that's all it was. And then we just started hanging out. Yeah, but then you started hanging out. Yeah, but we just started hanging out. Yes, but you started hanging out. Yeah, but we're just hanging out. Do you see how it's the same words, but she's trying to make it sound like it's less, like it's not a big deal, like it's not a thing. I'm getting very cold. I'm just going to pause this and turn on the heater. I'm in Australia and we're just coming like out of our autumn and into our winter season. So it's getting really cold here now. And the cold just makes my neck and my back and everything sort of ache and play up. Okay. We just started hanging out. Started again is not completed, so it's the beginning of something, right? It's the beginning of something. Hanging out is ongoing. We just started, past tense, hanging out. So she's recalling that and saying it in past tense. So it happened. They started hanging out, right? Then she repeats it. We hung out. So she's stuck on this. And I think she's stuck on this because she's slowing it down now. So you can see her brain taking big, slow steps. Okay, how do I make this sound better than it is? Because hanging out with a married man sounds pretty bad. So how do I make this look better for me? How do I make this not sound as bad as it is, right? Because that's all it was. And then we just started hanging out. Oh, you started hanging out. Yeah, we hung out. We went to a park. You see, it's like slowing down. She's repeating. She's getting stuck. So there are we again. They just started hanging out. Now it's we hung out. Hung out is like one time. It's not hanging out. Hung out. It implies that it was sort of not continuous. She's reduced it when she's repeated it. So instead of we just started hanging out, the just is gone, right? And the started is gone, but we hung out now. We hung out, right? We went to a park, public place. Other people are around. It's less private, right? She's trying to make this sound because we hung out. Could have been at home alone together doing whatever people do when they're home alone together. Now it's we went to a park, right? But we went to a park. So she's checking as she's self-editing, as she's saying it. So, oh no, we hung out. Oh man, heck. We hung out. Oh, that kind of sounds bad. Now she's said it out loud. She's heard herself say it out loud. She's repeated it to reduce it. We hung out. Yeah, that sounds okay. Yeah, we just hung out. Oh shit, that maybe doesn't sound that great. We went to, is this okay? Is this safe? Can I tell him? Should I tell him where we went to a park? Is that a date? We went to a park. That's a public place. So she's thinking about what she's saying now before she's saying it, right? And it's slowing down her language because this is sensitive. That's why she's slowing down and repeating, okay? Then she says again. Hung out at a park. So hanging out to her, right? I think this is my personal opinion. I think when she uses the language hanging out, when she hangs out, it might include adult activities, okay? Or attraction or intimacy of some sort, okay? This is just my opinion, right? This might come out in the language, but this is why I think she's so sensitive about this, because it's her own language here. And she's checked it. She's said it twice already. She's checked it. She's fixed it up. We went to a park. Okay, that's pretty safe. Hung out at a park. She had to tell them where she was hanging out. And she had to tell them that where she was hanging out was like a public place with other people around. They weren't hanging out in private. That's what she's saying there, okay? Yeah, that's what's coming out of that language for me. Now I'm going to read through the analysis. I do want to see if there's other possibilities that it could be why she's saying this the way she's saying it and repeating it the way she is. But what's jumping out to me here is that I think she's realized she's done it again. She's realized She's let something slip. And this could support my theory previously that I mentioned just a little bit earlier, that I believe the physical relationship began immediately when they started hanging out outside of work, right? And this could support that. Okay. So let's continue. Let's continue. So we, again, they're we here. We is unity and togetherness. Hung out. So we don't know what her definition is of hanging out, all right? But she just said no, they didn't ever go on any kind of date of any kind. Okay? So hanging out's not like a date of any kind, apparently, to her, right? But we don't know what her definition is of that language. Because he's married, and she knows he's married before they hung out, right? So she's minimizing this here, because a single woman doesn't hang out with a married man in secret, right? That's called an affair, okay? She doesn't call it an affair, but she will clarify that it is later, and we will highlight that and refer back to this, okay? So she's minimizing it. It's not really distancing. She's not really distancing at all. She's just minimizing, okay? Because she's just saying plainly, we just started hanging out. Just isn't really minimizing here, and neither is started, because it's the beginning of something. And what she's not distancing, she's minimizing that there was more to it, right? So she's not really distancing here, but she is minimizing the language. She's minimizing. It's not an affair. They're just hanging out, right? She doesn't want to be associated with negative language. She wants to be the good guy. This is her narrative again. Like I said, doesn't help her narrative to be going on a date with a man that's told her he's not separated yet. So they were just hanging out. Now she does this a lot in her language. Like I said, this is a theme and a pattern throughout, and it's constant, and we'll point it out every time we see it come up. She tries to associate negative language with certain people deliberately. So she tries to associate negative language with Chris. And moving forward, she'll associate negative language with Shanann. But she tries not to associate herself with negative language, okay? And we'll go over that as it comes up. And it comes up a lot. It's very obvious. I don't know if she thinks she's being subtle, but it's really obvious, okay? It's very, very clear what she's doing. Again, I think she thinks she's smarter than everyone and that no one notices what she's doing. And when she does this, I'll point it out as it comes up. It's interesting. It shows the narrative she's trying to push overall throughout. We hung out direct, okay? It's a true statement. She's got the pronoun we in there. Togetherness, unity, her and him, they're both there, right? They're both present in the language together as a team. We hung, past tense, hung out, right? It's simple, it's short, it's said with conviction, with confidence. It's true. It's a true statement. They hung out, okay? But it's a true statement, but she's minimizing an affair into hanging out, okay? So, but it is true, because in her mind, that's how she's framing it, okay? So she's framing it that way, and she's able to answer, she's able to use the language of certainty and conviction and truthfulness in saying we hung out, because they did. It was an affair, but in her mind, they hung out, right? What else have we got here? And her language is minimizing the affair because, again, it's her narrative. She's the good guy. She's innocent, blameless, guiltless. She's moral. She's good. All of the good things. We went to a park. So she falls over this one. She trips over this. She repeats it. She got nervous about saying they went to a park. So we hung out, right? We just started hanging out. We hung out. She's checking her language. She repeated it because it's safe. She thinks it's safe for her to say that. And she's repeated hung out because she wants to emphasize minimizing, right? She's emphasizing they hung out. They didn't have an affair. They hung out, right? But it is sensitive to her because she knows it's wrong as well, as why she keeps repeating it and over-explaining it because it's sensitive, because she knows it's wrong, right? We went to a park. It's just a park. She doesn't introduce the park. She doesn't tell us where. Now, why is there hesitation about the park? Well, I've just explained that. She's checking that it's okay to say it. She's probably checking the timeline. She's checking. She wants to tell us she went to the park. So she doesn't want to give us details, right? She doesn't want to give information. But she's realized that what it sounds like when she said they started hanging out alone with a married man. So she's saying we went to a park. So it's not private, it's public place. So it helps her out in that we don't now imagine them home alone together, right? In private. Hung out at a park. So the we is gone there. We went to a park. So maybe she was going to say where the park was, but she stopped and she's just said a park, right? Because she doesn't want to give us too much information, okay? But she needs to tell us that they were in a public place because that helps her. That helps her image. That helps her narrative with this here. Hung out at a park. So the we is gone. And just zombies hung out at a park, right? They're gone. They're gone from the park. So there's no we now. She didn't repeat the we, so it's really sensitive. She's dropped the pronoun, okay? Hung out at a park. So because she's dropped the we from hung out now, what were they doing at that park? Because I'd like to know what hung out means to her. And I think hanging out with someone, I think when she uses that language in general, she's referring to intimacy with someone. I think she uses that term when she's hooking up with someone, right? So, because she's dropped the we now as well. So we didn't hang out at a park, just hung out at a park. So what were they doing at the park is what I'd like to know. But she's repeated at a park because it's public place. So she's repeated that there. She wants us to know it was at a park, okay? That they hung out. Hung out at a park. She drops the pronoun we. She repeats hung out. Is this the first time they were physical? I've got this in mind. So I picked this up straight away, right? Is this the first time they were physical at this park? The first time they met outside of work? Is this the first time they were physical? Or did they see each other outside of work before this, but it was in the car? Did they meet up somewhere after work for a short time before they went home or something, or like before work sometimes? So it was outside of work, but the physical relationship started then. So it was after they just started talking at work. So it wasn't at work, technically. They weren't working at the time, but they were meeting up outside of work hours, possibly still at work, but before work started or after work finished. And perhaps something physical started then. And then they met up at this, because that's the and then, right? Things progressed. Then they started hanging out, okay? So those little meetups for 5 or 10 minutes outside of work where they could just touch each other, or maybe they were just talking, but maybe it's when they started the physical relationship and they began, because they weren't at work, not like location wise, but as in it wasn't work hours and there wasn't work people watching them. Were they able to start physical touch? And that's when something happened, and then they started hanging out. So that could have possibly happened too, because the and then jumps over in time, and then we started hanging out, right? So it progressed. It was progressing. And we know it wasn't because of the conversations, right? We know it wasn't because of their pretty good conversations that they were having. But, you know, is this the first time? Because it might not be. They might have begun the physical stuff before this, but this possibly could have been the first time they were physical. But I think maybe if they didn't meet up if there was no progression of little meetups outside of work hours at work before this, then I think this was the first time they met up outside of work, and this was the first time they were physical. All right, that's what I'm getting from the language. I'm going to say that's my opinion at this point, because I'm seeing it, I'm getting my opinion from the language, but there's nowhere I can point to and say that's definitely this, okay, at this point. This is just what I'm getting, all right? Where am I? At the park, she drops the pronoun. Was this the first time they were physical? Okay, so was this the first time they were alone and so they were physical with each other? I believe they were physical the first time they were alone. And I don't mean it might not have progressed straight to some kind of intimacy, like kissing or whatever, but I'm saying I believe there was physical touching, like hug or touching hands or touch on the arm. They were able to touch each other in private that they couldn't do at work when there was other people looking, right? She might have touched him in the office that day. Who knows? If the office was private, I'm not sure. But was this the first time that they were physical with each other in some way? Because it was the first time they were alone. Or had they been alone before this and it was building towards this? Were they physical at the park? Right? Did something happen at the park? Was that the first time that something happened at the park, right? In the car park or in the public toilets or in, I don't know, some secluded area or part or corner of the park. Maybe there was no one else at the park that day. But saying we were at a park, it implies it's a public place, but it doesn't mean there was anyone else there. There might not have been anyone else there when they went. Her hesitation here and the repetition, like her sensitivity around the park, makes me curious to know more about this park, this hangout, right? The dropped pronoun also makes me curious about what exactly they did at this park. So you see, I've seen it in the language straight away. She dropped the we, so why has she now dropped the unity and togetherness at the park? Is it because she's thinking about what happened at the park, so she's dropped the we because she's trying to distance from it? She's trying to take, she's him and her together now aren't present at the park in her language, right? So she's removed them from the park in her language. So why would she do that? Because something happened at the park, maybe, that she doesn't want to associate with. She doesn't want it, like, in her thoughts right now. It doesn't help her. It's dangerous, so she takes it out. But then the detective completely changes the subject and does not ask any questions about this rendezvous or the park, okay? And he asks, why did he tell you about the divorce? Now, NK didn't use the word divorce, she said separated. So the detective has introduced the word divorce here. She didn't say anything about a divorce. She didn't say anything about a divorce. You're not listening, Kevin. You're not listening. She didn't say that. She said, he said that, yes, I have a wife, but we're getting separated. That's what she said. She didn't say they were getting divorced. So let's go back real quick. So was he going to say, did he tell you? But we don't know what he was going to say because he self-edits here. So why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? So let's go back real quick. So he's going to say, so he told you he was getting a divorce, but I don't know he was going to say that. Okay. Don't have a crystal ball. Can't read his mind. I'm assuming that's what he was going to say. All right. So and then he changes to, why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Right. Did he ask you out at that time? So Kevin's he's like a puppy that's too excited, and he's jumping around and he's getting, it's too soon, Kevin. It's too soon for that. All right. Leave it. Let her keep talking, because she didn't tell you that he asked her out at that time. So is Kevin thinking, right? Because she's just mentioned the park. So this is me just immersing myself into the language, okay, and into what they're saying. And language follows a thought pattern, right? You have a train of thought and you speak along that train of thought. That's what segues are for, okay? When you're talking about something and then someone says something like, I know someone who does this all the time, and we'll be talking about something and he'll say something else like, did you hear they had a car accident or something? And I'll be like, oh my gosh, such and such that we were just talking about literally 5 seconds ago. And then he says, did you hear they had a car accident? I'm associating, because he said they would have to be the people we were just talking about, right? But no, he's been thinking in his head for the 5 seconds that we've stopped talking, and he's thinking about someone else. And then he's gone, did you hear they had a car accident? And I've gone, such and such. And he's gone, no. And then he says the name of the person he was thinking about in his head that had a car accident, not the people we were talking about. I can't read minds, right? So this is how brains work, okay? So because I had no idea what he was thinking in his brain, my brain has continued the trail that we were on of these people we were talking about, while his brain's gone off down this side street down here about these other people. But my brain has no idea what he was thinking. So we follow trains of thought, right? She said he told her he had kids, and then he told her he was married but he was getting a divorce. The next thing she said is, and then we started hanging out. We went to a park. Kevin's gone, she's found out he told her he had kids, a wife, getting divorced, then they went to a park. Did he ask you out that day? Kevin's trying to fill in some gaps, right? But you don't just let them tell you everything, right? Let them tell you everything till they're finished. Then go back and ask questions about these things, okay? Because then you can go back and you can ask a question and they can tell you the answer and start talking about that thing. Right now, she's started talking about something else and you've changed the subject. You've changed the subject. You've stopped her train of thought here, what she was talking about, where she was going with that. That's gone. You've taken her back to this road and you've taken her down this road again. That road's gone now. That's gone. All right? You don't know what she was going to say next now. It's over. You can forget about it. So it's frustrating that he's done this, but I can see if you go back through the conversation, you go back through the language, you can see where he's gone astray. You can see where he's gone, oh man, I figured it out. I figured it all out. She said that he told her he was married and getting a divorce, and then they went to the park. He must have asked her out that day. Did he ask you out that day? No, Kevin, he didn't. But thank you for interrupting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for interrupting and asking that question that was completely useless. Thank you. But anyway, he did. So whatever. It's done now. It's done now, Kevin. It's done. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so, and he's thinking in his own head, and he's used language she didn't even say. So because he's thinking in his head, oh, he told her he was getting a divorce, he asked her out. He told her he was getting divorced, and then he asked her out straight away. He didn't tell her he was getting divorced. She said he told her he was getting separated, and she actually never even said that he told her that. She said he told her he had kids, and then she, playing him in the role that she wrote herself, told her that him and his wife were getting divorced. But he never said that. She said it, playing him as a character in a play she wrote. No, he didn't. That's what she says. No, he didn't. So I'll just quickly read this bit together. Oh, man. An hour and a half in. Wow. An hour and a half in just on that. Okay. Starting to get really into things now, okay? Let's see how far we get through this bit, because this is a small chunk. All right? But it is still a chunk. And when it comes to Nichol, even a very small chunk can be just too much to swallow. No, he didn't. I think he was probably interested in me. And so he talked to me a couple of times via his work phone, and I was like, no, like it was still very like friendly conversation. But when I realized like this man is interested in me, I am interested in him, this is personal. So we got away from the Anandako thing because I really don't want those guys affiliated with any of this. And Kevin interrupts. Cue Kevin. All right, so let's break this down. Where did we go? Where did we go? No. Okay. No. That's a complete answer. She could have stopped there. She could have stopped there. She could have got off and we could have moved on. But she did not. She kept going because that's what she likes to do. He didn't. Well, that's what no means right there. Okay? No means he didn't. That is what that means. So that's irrelevant. That's unnecessary. So that's important. I think, no, he didn't. Did he ask you out then? No, he didn't. She wants it now. does she want it to sound like he did? Like, does she want it to sound like he was pursuing her here because she was actually pursuing him, right? Because she says, no, he didn't ask me out, right? No, he didn't. Okay, that's fine. That's the answer to the question. I think he was probably interested in me. Well, okay. Nobody asked you that. Nobody asked you. He was obviously, right, interested in you because you ended up having an affair and then he unalived his whole family to be with you. Okay, so yeah, I think he was probably interested in you, Nicole, right? But thanks for sharing. So that's not an answer to the question. She answered the question already twice, but then she goes on to say, I think he was probably interested in me. Now this is again her pushing her narrative where he's the villain. Okay, he pursued her. She's innocent, right? She's a victim here. It's not her fault. He lied to her. She was under the wrong impression. He told her he was separated, which he didn't. And she's moral. She's good. She's helpful. She's kind. She's a good person, right? She wouldn't pursue him, even though she did. But did he ask you out that day? Did he tell you he's getting divorced and then ask you out? No, he didn't. He didn't, because he was still married. So he didn't ask me out because he was married. I think he was probably interested in me though. Like she's trying to make something out of nothing. She said no, he didn't ask her out. But now she's like, oh, I think he was interested in me though. Yeah, okay. But he didn't ask you out. He didn't tell her he was getting divorced either, okay? But Kevin's asked two questions there again. He can't help himself with compound questions. Why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Did he ask you out at that time? Oh, okay. So maybe here. See, that's why you got to kind of read it back sometimes, because when you break it up, it can lose some of the context, right? So no, he didn't ask me out at that time. I think he was probably interested in me. Why did he tell you he was getting divorced, right? I think he was probably interested in me. So she's answering those questions, but she's answered them in a different order to what they were asked. So why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Did he ask you out at that time? No, he didn't. She should have clarified with he didn't ask me out. No, he didn't ask me out, right? Because there's two questions she's answering. So it's unclear what she's answering here because she hasn't been specific. But that would make sense because one is a yes or no question and one is not, okay? One's an open question. So no, he didn't is likely the answer to, did he ask you out at that time? No, he didn't. I would probably expect, no, he didn't ask me out, but no, he didn't. Fair enough, okay. That's a true statement. That's a true statement. But like I said, I would rather have he didn't ask me out just to confirm what she's answering. But because he asked her, so this is the other thing as well with the question. Because he asked her, did he ask you out at that time? She can say, no, he didn't. If she says, no, he didn't ask me out at that time, that could be seen as repeating the question, like parroting back to him his own words, which can be sensitive, okay? So if she'd said that, like if the question was that same question, did he ask you out at that time? And she said, no, he didn't ask me out at that time. That could be her answering the question and withholding the information that he actually did ask her out at a different time. Does that make sense? So it's fine. I'm kind of happy that she's actually answered it this way here. If she'd answered it the other way, it could indicate that he'd asked her at a different time, but it still would indicate he didn't ask her at that time because that's what she's actually saying, right? But that could be used as a way to omit that she was actually asked out at a different time, right? So this is where things are, they're not always straightforward, and sometimes things can mean truthfulness, or they can mean deception, or they can mean both. And it's very important that you analyze it thoroughly, and you allow for all of those possibilities, and then the language will confirm which one of those possibilities or indicators is accurate in this circumstance, in this situation, in this language, right? I think he was probably interested in me. So there's qualifiers here. I think he was probably interested in me. Well, he was interested in you because you had an affair. And everybody knows you had an affair, and you're being interviewed about an affair that you had with him. So he definitely was interested in you. But Kevin has asked a question about that specific time. She's not saying this with confidence. This is qualified. And she's answering the question. But I think that it came up about the kids and the wife because of Father's Day. So I don't think that he told her that because he was interested in her. I think it came up because of Father's Day, and then there may have been some kind of a prompting, spoken or unspoken, about having a wife, because she already knew, right? And she doesn't say that he told her that. She can't say he told her that, right? He mentioned, and then she quotes him, because that's not what he said. All right, let's go through this analysis. Yeah, we'll see how far we get. We might get to the end of this bit here. I'm not sure. No, he didn't. All right, straightforward answer, fair enough answer. He didn't ask her out at that time, though, is what Kevin says. At that time, okay? So, no, he didn't ask her out at that time is the question she was answering, all right? He didn't tell her he was getting divorced because he was asking her out, all right? So that's what she's saying there. No. Sorry. When I've read back through it, that's what I wrote in my first analysis. And listen, that could also be it, because Kevin's asked the compound question. So she's basically now got free reign over those questions in there, and she can pick and choose what she answers. And she also can answer them in a way that sounds like she's answering a certain question, but she's not. She might be answering a different question because she's what am I trying to say? Oh, I think I'm getting tired now. She's reframing them in her head. She's reorganizing them in her head. She's shuffling things around in her head because he's asked something that's not direct and specific. And yeah, he's not really been specific. So she's now basically got free reign on the question to play around with it in her head, to make her answers, to answer what she wants to answer, okay, basically. But now, having read through it again, because in the first analysis, he didn't tell her he was getting divorced because he was asking her out, is what she's answering there, right? But now that I've read back through it, I think it's more likely she's answered, no, he didn't ask me out at that point. And then I think he was probably interested in me. That's why he told me he was getting divorced. But she never used the word divorced. Kevin did. Okay. So she's not really answering that question. She's changing the divorced thing in her head, because divorce never came up in her language. So she's taken Kevin's word divorced, and she's accepted that word divorced, and she's keeping it there because he's used it. So she knows in his head, he's thinking the word divorced, right? But she never said it. But she's allowing him to think. She didn't correct him, okay? Because it works for her. That's fine. It works for her if Kevin thinks that Chris told her he was getting divorced. That's fine. And she's got plausible deniability there because she never said it. And if they go, well, you told us he said he was getting divorced, she can go, no, I didn't. And she didn't. Kevin did it. He didn't tell her he was getting divorced because he was asking her out. So because he hadn't told her he was getting divorced, we don't know what time frame she's referring to here. Yeah, so because Kevin's introduced language that she never used, she can be answering a question that maybe Chris said he was going to get a divorce. I was going to say months later, but this whole thing happened over 6-week period. That's just realized that, and it just, every time I think about it, it's just nuts. They're just so crazy. It's so fast. It's so intense. It's so full on. But perhaps there was a time, right? And this is just what I'm explaining that this language could allow for, okay? Because Kevin's introduced the word divorced. Had Chris at some point later on told her that he wanted to get a divorce or that he was getting a divorce, which may have happened, right towards the end, that's possible. She can now answer a question from that time frame because he's used that language. So she can honestly answer the question. So he's asking the question about here, this day, this time frame. But because he's introduced language, and that language that he's mentioned happened in a scenario that happened over here at a different time, she can use his language that he's used here by mistake. She can answer the question about this time frame here when it happened, and it will be truthful. But it didn't happen here. But because it happened here, and she's using his language and answering the question he asked, and the language that he used happened over here sometime, she can now choose to answer the question in the context of this time frame. And it will be a truthful response. It will be a truthful answer because it's true. Because he's used different language, and that scenario happened. It just didn't happen at the time Kevin's asking about. So that's the other danger when you introduce language, is that you give someone an opportunity to give a truthful answer, but about a different time or situation, okay? So that's what I've said in here, right? We don't know what time frame she's referring to, because she could be talking about when he said he was getting separated, but she might be referencing to a time when he told her he was getting divorced, because that's the language Kevin used. Or they discussed divorce, or she could be making it up because he never told her he was getting divorced. And this is why you can't introduce language in analysis, and must let the subject use their own language and let them speak for themselves, okay? So he's contaminated that question, basically, right? He's contaminated her answer, because we don't really know now what question she was answering there. So we can still we can still look at the language, we can still see that. So no, he didn't is direct and confident. We can still see that there's qualifying language here. So she's not confident. So it could be that she's qualifying and she's not confident because she knows she's answering a question about a different time frame, and she knows when he's referring to. But because she's using his language and answering a question about a different time frame when something else happened, so that she can answer it truthfully, she knows she's being deceptive because she knows what he means. But by taking his language and using it in to her own benefit, then she can answer it truthfully. But the language still indicates there's a lack of confidence. Does that make sense? So I think he was probably interested in me. Now, this could be lacking confidence because it was the other way around, and she made it very clear that she was interested in him, and she knows that she did that. So she's trying to turn it and put it on him here, but she knows that it was actually the opposite, and so that's why she's lacking confidence and qualifying here. She could have or because she knows that's not how it came up. Like she knows that that's not why it came up. It came up because of Father's Day, but she's using this as an opportunity for the accusatory language, to serve her narrative that he's the villain, it's his fault, you know, he chased me, he pursued me, he was the married one, he told me he was like that narrative. So this is not a truthful statement here, this part. We can't be sure why, but it's likely one of those reasons, and that the likeliness is because of the other language, okay? Because we know that he told her when it was Father's Day, so that very well could have been why it came up in conversation, right? Because it was right before Father's Day, so that could be why he told her he was married. And I don't believe he did tell her he was getting separated. I believe she made that up. So that could be also why this is qualified and lacks confidence, because it didn't happen. So she's making up a reason that something didn't happened. Like she's making up a reason for why it happened, but it didn't happen. So that could be why. I think he was probably interested in me, because we know he was, right? Because they had an affair. But if he never told her he was getting divorced, which he didn't tell her, especially in that time frame there that they're talking about specifically, he didn't tell her he was getting divorced. I don't even believe he told her he was getting separated. So she's making up a reason for him telling her something that never happened, right? So that's why it's worded that way. I think he was probably interested in me. To be fair, she would have known he was interested. If he told her he was getting divorced, she would have known it was because he was interested in her, because it's literally the first time they've spoken. So this part of the statement has been contaminated with the detective's language. We can analyze the language, but we can't know what we can analyze the language, but it's been contaminated, right? So we have to just analyze around that contamination and use other indicators like the lack of confidence and all that stuff. We can still analyze it, but it's been contaminated. So we have to take that into consideration, and we have to also acknowledge that and note it. It's been contaminated, right? Also, he's introduced the language ask her out, not hung out. He should have said, did he ask you to hang out? Did he ask you to hang out at that time, right? Because her language was hung out. So ask her out in her mind might be like Bill Clinton, and so she can say, no, he didn't ask me out at that time. He asked me if I wanted to go to the park and hang out. Do you see? She can say no there, even if it's actually true, because he's introduced language that she doesn't agree with. Okay. So that's another reason why the language is contaminated, and you can't really analyze it because the contamination allows now for too many variables. And you can only analyze the subject's language. So if he's used other language, we don't know what her answer is because it's not her language. If that makes sense. I think I'm getting a bit tired now. There's a lot more to come out of here. Yeah, there's a lot more to come out of here because this one's a lot. Okay, we'll get to the end of what I've written here about this analysis, but we have gone through quite a lot already, just in real time, like off the cuff. So let me see what we've got here, and we'll finish up in a minute. So what question is she answering here, right? It's not what she just said. As the detective has used his own language, he's used divorce and asked out when her language was separated and hung out. So the question that she's answering is actually, and he's given a compound question too, which is also multiple questions in one, so she can pick and choose and rearrange. She can answer one question or both questions or part of the questions. Like she can pick and choose. So my first analysis here, I'm sort of, it's not wrong, okay? But like I said, when we go over it again and again and again, and then when I read through it here and then we do an analysis in real time, because like I said, when I first started doing this, I was doing it just for myself, and then I realized how much could be gotten out of this, could be extracted, and so I started to try and do a more thorough, more detailed analysis. So that's why sometimes I am reading through here and I'm like, I don't know. I've found other language now when I've gone further on as well, or I've seen more things in it that's jumped out at me when I've gone over it in this video, that has taken me down a different path. So that's why I said you have to allow for possibilities, and then you note all the indicators in the language and the sensitivities, and then as you continue, or as you see more sensitivities and more indicators, it will either confirm certain possibilities or take you to other possibilities, right? And it will eliminate some stuff too. So I think because I've gone deeper into it now, it's eliminated some of these possibilities that I've written here initially. So I'm not even going to read them out because we've already covered them, and we've gone deeper. And because also that question has contaminated her answer, right? The one thing that I will say that's in here that we didn't mention is that I think he was probably interested in me. With the qualifying language here and the lack of confidence, because we've seen her answer questions with such confidence and conviction, that we know that she does do that in some certain circumstances. So when she doesn't do that, then I will always flag that, because why is she not doing that here? Is she trying to make me look over here at this thing because she doesn't want me to see this other thing because this isn't true? She wants me to look over here. Or is it because she's trying to convince me of this so hard because it's a narrative she's trying to push? Or, you know, she wants to influence my view, my opinion. So she didn't answer that one directly. It's very qualified and it's not direct. So yeah, I would flag that. Like I said, it's a contaminated answer, but half of the answer was very definite and direct and certain and with conviction, and the other half was without any of that, was the complete opposite. So I will note that, okay? And then it flags that part about I think he was interested in me. So, and I'm flagging that because I believe she's pushing a narrative there, okay? That's, even though the language is contaminated, I can still see the difference there. I can still flag that language, and then I can still analyze that language to a point where I can go, that she's saying this here to serve a narrative, to push her narrative, to make herself look good, and to use the accusatory language, the negative language for Chris, to make him look bad, okay? And it's not really got anything to do with the answering the question that was contaminated. It's more just the language and what she was saying, that what she wanted us to hear. Okay. So that's why that's still able to be analyzed to an extent. All right. Yeah. So that's basically what I've got there. And then we've got the so is of the highest sensitivity, is the because, the so, without being asked, she's explaining things. There's 3 of them here in this. Okay. And she's started to go on about, so they were just talking at work, right? And then they started hanging out. But then she started going on about a work phone, right? And then how they've gone away from, so she's leaked information here. Okay, we're not going to analyze this bit now because we're coming up for 2 hours, and because it's a chunk, it's going to probably take an episode. That's probably going to take a video to go through this, the rest of it. But she started going on about the work phones. So now, because her brain knows what it knows, right? She's talking about them just talking at work, conversing at work, and then they started hanging out. And then she started talking about work phones. So remember when I said about how there's a train of thought, and then, you know, when 2 people are talking about something and then one person has a different thought and changes the subject but doesn't indicate it to this person has no idea what they're talking about, because this person's still on that track and this person's gone off down a side street. This is what she's done here. She's leaking. So her brain is thinking about just talking at work, right? Now her brain knows what it knows. So she knows when she's talking about them talking at work, she's thinking about it, right? She's thinking about what she's explaining, what she's talking about. So she's thinking about it, and in her brain, she remembers what was happening. She remembers how they were talking, and she's told us here. But she wasn't asked, by accident. This is leakage, okay? Because she's thinking about them talking at work, and she's saying, and he talked to me a couple of times via his work phone, but I was like, oh, this, you know. So they were talking via the work phones. So after that meeting in the office, did she send an email and they exchanged personal phone numbers or work phone numbers? Or after that meeting at the office, did they send an email? Why do I think they sent an email first? Why do I think they sent an email first? I'm not sure why I think that, but I do. I don't know where I got that from. Where have I got that from? Because in my opinion, after they met, she emailed him. Maybe he emailed her, but I get the feeling because she was pursuing him, right? It's in the language, but she's trying to make us think that he pursued her, but she was pursuing him so hard. She knew who he was. She sought him out. She was interested in him. She was the one aggressively pursuing the relationship. Why do I feel like she emailed him after they met that day and said and opened the gate for the what word am I trying to think of? Like talking back and forth, the communication. She opened the door to communication. I don't know why I think that, but that's what I think happened. So I think there was an email first, and then there was phones. And I do think it was sort of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like a facade. I think there was a facade of like professionalism. Like the email wasn't hey, Chris, it was, you know, I'd love to see you outside of, like, I think she kept it like, hi, it was really great to talk to you today. If you ever need anything, please feel free to come and see, you know, feel free to ask me, or something about work, like work related. You know, she kept it, I think she kept it very, not too personal. I think she kind of kept it sort of work related. But then she said here that they talked via his work phone. So she's told us they talked via his work phone, because in her mind she's remembering it happening. So yeah, there's gonna, you know what, there's gonna be a lot in here. There's gonna be a lot in here coming out, because there's 3 levels of the highest indicator. 3 of them in here. 3 of the highest sensitivity indicators. The explaining something without being asked, the so, the because, you know, that. There's 3 of them. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here for tonight, and we're going to go into that in the next video. So hopefully we can work our way through the whole rest of that small chunk before Kevin interrupts. Cue Kevin. Yeah, okay, so thanks very much for being here again. 2 hours at a time, I know, is a long video. I love long form videos because, like I've said before, I listen to them when I'm driving, when I'm cleaning, when I used to listen to them at work. When I was at work for hours and hours and hours and hours, I just used to listen to things all day long on my earbuds and just soak up information and learn and listen to true crime cases and stuff like this. The Watts case, and there's a couple of other channels I want to just call out as well, or shout out, not really call out. So I don't know if I've mentioned True Crime Footnotes, but he's really good. He's got some very interesting, he's doing similar to what I'm doing at the moment. He's pointing out things in Nichole's language, and I'm sort of doing that just to a much more detailed extent. Like, I'm going right into the analysis very, very thoroughly and detailed. But he's very good to listen to, and he goes through the interviews a lot faster than me, obviously. And he's not breaking it down like I am. He plays parts of a interview, and then he says things that you should note from it, which is really, I like his videos. And I don't normally listen to AI generated stuff, but I do listen to his content. I really enjoy it. I think I've mentioned Behind Criminal Minds. He's fantastic, really fantastic. Another one I wanted to mention was Unapologetically Me. She's done a lot of research, and she's put a lot of time and effort into videos on this case that are information that I've never heard anywhere else that she's found. She's really, really great as well. The channel that I'm listening to to do the transcripts for this interview and for, well, both of Nichole's interviews is Crime Talk. So that's the channel that I've been using for my transcripts. I couldn't remember the name of it the other video I was talking about it. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it since, but I probably have, because I think I remember saying about how many views I've given that channel because I've watched it over and over and over doing the transcript. But just in case I haven't, I just want to give him a shout out again. His content's really good. I like his interviews. They're well edited. So that's going to be it for today. I'm getting tired because I start rambling on. Thank you so much for being here. If you've made it to the end, like, congratulations, because 2 hours is a long time. And I really appreciate anyone who's watching all of these videos. I really appreciate you being here and coming on this journey with me. It's gonna get a lot more interesting. I'm really excited. Hopefully we'll find some really important information. Maybe we'll be able to confirm some information that hasn't been able to be confirmed yet, or we'll be able to find things in the language that people have been wondering or hasn't been brought up before, or, you know, whatever. But I think there's going to be a lot coming out of it. And I'm really excited and I'm enjoying doing them. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later.